Yeah, no, it's a gorgeous scarf. I just don't tie it well.
I
Everybody
love,
has their own unique style of scarf tying.
Yeah.
yes, everybody. And we're going to talk. I have tonight's theme, scarves.
Yay. It has a theme.
I love it. I love a good theme. There's nothing like a good theme. So, started the recording. So, letting people in and join us. So, I'm just going to start chatting because this is recorded and it'll show up on our YouTube channel later. So, I just want to welcome back Aimie, Janelle, and Rachel. Yay. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
So,
It's so fun having all of you back on again. The three queens, I like to say the three queens of historical fiction.
So
yay!
nice.
We'll
Thank
Yay!
take
you.
it.
Powerhouse.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is a powerhouse. And
Yeah.
we talked a little bit in the green room about how we've been waiting for this, and I can't wait for this discussion because I think it's just going to be so fun. I can't wait to hear all about how this was all put together. So thank you all three for coming in.
Well,
Um,
thank you for having us.
Yeah, I love it. I was talking too. I still love doing the virtual events because I get to see all of you. I would never be able to see all of you on a regular basis without this.
That's
So
true.
it's really fun to still do these, and our customers still love them. So we do what the people want, right?
Yes,
Right.
give them
Give
what
them
they
what they
want.
want.
Give
We
the
are
people
women of
what
the
they want.
And they
people.
want books.
They want
We are
good
women
books and
of
good
the people.
stories. And you three give us wonderful stories. So the fact that you're doing this
Aw.
together is just way too much fun. I always like to ask because it's just one of my things to fill a little bit of time. I go around the room and let's tell us about the weather where you're at. So Aimie, you're in Colorado, right?
Yes, and it is cold. It is very cold today. We are at like, I don't know, 10 degrees or
Ooh.
so. And we got a little bit of snow last night, but thankfully didn't stick around because my darling husband had to drive up from the airport in Denver this morning.
Yikes.
So, but he got in just fine.
Yay.
So, yeah, cold.
Cold. Janelle, you're in Virginia. Is that where you're at?
I'm in Virginia and it is in the 40s and foggy and misty
Okay.
at the
Oh,
moment.
I kind of like that.
Atmospheric.
I
Yeah,
know
atmospheric.
it was a good writing day because I like writing in those kinds of weather, but
Yeah.
last week it was like in the 30s and 20s.
Oh,
So
that's a little
we've
cold.
warmed up a little bit here. It's nice.
I like it.
Yeah.
And Rachel in Toronto?
Toronto, yeah, it's about the same as Janelle's right now. It's very foggy, but I know my parents up north have a ton of snow, which is great because I like a white Christmas.
Mm.
I need snow at Christmas, and where I come from, my hometown, always so much snow. I'm so
Oh,
excited for that.
Yeah.
I love that.
There's nothing like this time of year with snow. And I'm letting everybody just to know that I've turned on the chat. I forgot to do that earlier. So if you want to tell us where you're calling in from or where you're watching from, we'd love to hear that too. So always love a good chat going on. So these lovely ladies are going to talk about their new book, The Liberty Scarf. Who's got a cop? There it is. I was
Yay!
just saying, such a great package. It's a great cover, you guys. I love it. So they're going to be talking about that. They'll talk for about 35, 40-ish minutes. I think there's a lot to talk about, so take a little bit more time to talk what you need to talk. We're going to take some questions from the audience. We always love audience questions, so go ahead and pop those. There's a QA button at the bottom of your screen, so go ahead and pop those questions in there, and I will be putting in how to order the book from Warwick's. If you want to support your local bookstore, we understand and appreciate that, but if you want to order it from Warwick's, we will have copies to send to you as well. So, with
Yay!
that, I do my job, which is to introduce these wonderful authors, and then I go away for a while. So, international bestselling author Aimie Runyan writes to celebrate unsung heroines. She has written 6 historical novels and counting. It's 8 now. My goodness, so we're going to 8.
I'm tired.
You've been busy. You've been busy. And is delving into the exciting world of contemporary women's fiction. She's been a finalist for the Colorado Book Award 3 times, a nominee for the Rocky Mountain, 5 times. We need to update this bio.
Yeah, we do.
We need to get a new bio going. I'm just realizing that it's like, okay, maybe I need to stop now. We need a new bio coming in. A nominee for Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers, Writer of the Year, and Historical Novel Society's Editor Choice Selection. Aimie is active as a speaker and educator in the writing community in Colorado and beyond. Best-selling author Janelle Ciesielski has a passion for heart-stopping adventure and sweeping love stories while weaving fresh takes into romances of times gone by. When not creating dashing heroes and daring heroines, she can be found dreaming of Scotland, indulging in chocolate of any kind, or watching old black and white movies. She is a member of the Tall Poppy Writers and, as we said, lives in Virginia. And Rachel McMillan, one of our wonderful interlocutors, as I like to say, that has done countless virtual events with us. We simply adore you for that and for
Aw.
everything else. You're the busiest lady in this business. Well, all you ladies are. She's the author of The London Restoration, The Mozart Code, The Herringford and Watts Mysteries, The Van Buren and De Luca Mysteries, and a three-quarter time series of contemporary Viennese romances. As I said, these ladies are going to be talking about the Liberty Scarf, so let's get to it, and we'll see y'all in a little bit.
Thanks,
Thank
Julie.
you,
Thank
Julie.
you.
So I think we need to point out that we did not talk about at all what we're going to talk about. So we're just going to wing it.
No, you
But I
guys
don't
get
think we
like
need, I don't think we need to because we actually talk every day. We
Yes.
talk every
yes,
day
it's
in our little
30
chat.
minutes off the cuff. 30
Yeah.
minutes off the cuff.
Um,
So, and
do you have
we
a
have to
copy
tell
of
everybody.
Castle Keepers there, Amy?
Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
I don't have a Castle Keepers with me, but we should let people know that this is the second time we're
She's
doing
got them all behind her
like
anyway.
this. I know, I can see
Yeah,
it.
this
There
is
we
my
go.
studio. This is my oeuvre right here, and then we got
I love
translations and
that.
special editions. And I love doing events here because I have all my friends. There's Rachel books, there's Janelle books, Kate Quinn, Heather Webb. All of my
All your
people are right here,
pals.
and I love working in this space
Hmm.
because it's like I'm surrounded by the good wishes of all my friends, and I
It's a
love
nice
that.
space.
Yeah, but this is our first collaboration, Castle Keepers. I always keep the edition that our editor Kim sends with
Yeah.
the little note, the little love note that she puts in there. I love that.
Yes, we
And
have a lovely editor who always personalizes little notes
Mhm.
yes,
whenever we have a book out. And that's really nice because one of the things that I don't know if readers recognize is just exactly how essential editors are to our books. We write
oh my
them,
gosh.
but they
Yeah.
see the best version of a story, sometimes a version that we can't possibly imagine for ourselves.
It's a hot mess when we turn it in.
Oh
Oh
gosh,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, like, as funny as that, I remember sending the meme like with the broken record player. This is not, it does not work, but could be fun to fix. For my first book to Kim, the Memory of Lavender and Sage. And man, between, I did a good draft, I think, between the time I sent it to her and the time she actually read it. But it's amazing, like how much a book can transform in editorial, and how much it needs to, because you just need those extra set of eyes. And Kim is so wonderful. There's a reason we dedicated this book to Kim, is that she is just one of the best in the business. She really is, and she cares so much. So yay, Kim!
Yay, Kim. But she definitely had a task ahead of her with all the storylines that we came up with,
Yeah.
because it's a little different than we did in Castle Keepers.
Yes.
So maybe we should talk about how we came up with the idea for this
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
collection.
Well, I'd always wanted to do a book about, because the American government had promised to get all the troops home for Christmas from World War I. And the armistice was signed on November 11th, as you probably know. It's our Veterans Day, it's Remembrance Day in the UK and Canada. And I love the idea because, they have that tall order, getting all the American troops home for Christmas, and they failed, obviously. I mean, it was just too big of a task. And I love the idea of having these people trying to get home, and a series of short stories where people were stuck in various places. And I kind of pitched that idea, I think, to you guys, and of course we decided that we shouldn't just make it about American troops. So I wrote about the Hello Girls, because one of my favorite books that I've ever written was Girls on the Line, about the Hello Girls. So I got to revisit that. But Rachel and Janelle wanted to do it from the perspective of other troops, and so you guys can tell us
And
about
I
what
was
you guys
really
did.
I was really excited to do World War One. I don't
Mhm.
know if World War One is as big to study in America as it is in Canada. World War One is huge here.
Not really here.
Partly, and I think it's partly because we were just, as a Commonwealth, we were just there longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot of World War II, as has everyone.
Yeah.
And I was really fascinated about doing World War One, and I love writing about different locations. And I think Janelle's the same. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
but I don't remember where the Liberty, I think we were trying to come up with a connecting.
We were
Yeah,
trying
and
to
that
come
was
up with
Janelle.
something to connect
Yeah.
the different stories, because in the Castle Keepers, they were a family and they had the same castle. And so
And we had a family tree, and it got so
Oh,
complicated
it
Lord.
got so
because
complicated. So we're like,
Yeah,
no
that
families
got
for this
super
one.
complicated. Yeah.
No families. So we thought, well, what
oh,
about an object that connects
Yes.
them? And I think we threw out a bunch of different ideas. And then I don't remember who said it. Well, what about a scarf?
It was you, I'm
it
pretty
was
sure.
you.
The
Was it
Liberty
me?
of
I
Started
London
don't
this
one.
idea.
remember. Somebody said, how about a scarf? I don't think it was me because somebody said scarf. And then I said, what if we do Liberty of London?
Okay, well,
'Cause-
you definitely were the Liberty of London. You were the
Yes,
brains behind
Yes.
Liberty.
yes.
So
Because,
I might have said scarf. Rachel might have. I don't know.
yeah.
But
So I
you
thought,
So
well, why
long
don't we
ago.
do the Liberty of London because they're famous for their scarves and their prints. And then
yeah.
it ran
And
from
see,
there.
I love the symbolism of a
So
scarf.
good.
They're long and fluid, and it feels like something that could connect people. So I do love that we chose that symbol
And
to
Janelle
connect
des
people.
Janelle designed the scarf in the
Yes.
Liberty scarf in the book is
Let me just,
actually a
I am not
Janelle
an
design.
artist. And I just like scribbled with pen, just this very basic. I am not an artist at all. So I just scribbled an idea, and that's kind of what we went with for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
scarf, which it is not the one on the cover. It
No,
doesn't really look like
No,
this,
they couldn't
but
do that. Yeah.
they
I mean, that
couldn't.
would have been so expensive.
It would
I mean,
have.
we all have grand hopes for a cover, but I think the three of us have been in the business long enough to know there are limits to what they can afford to do.
Yeah.
But like what I love about Liberty Scars is this is a Hera print, which is one of their oldest
Yep.
ones. It's basically like
so pretty.
We
peacock
all have them.
feathers.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
And
Hera print is one of their most famous ones, and it has the peacock feathers on it because peacock feathers were a symbol of Hera, the goddess from Greek
yeah.
mythology.
And it was really like, it was definitely ahead of its time because 1918 was basically pre-Art Deco, but they kind of foresaw that movement with the geometric designs and I think that they blended, the beautiful kind of nature, the natural aspect of, the peacock feathers, which is a symbol of luxury, et cetera, but then also the geometric stuff that really was edgy and, leading into the 1920s, motif.
And Janelle, you do that so well. You create that world so well of
Mhm.
how she's just a little bit ahead of her time. And um,
Yes. Yes,
when we were, sorry,
sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to say that when we were discussing this contract, like with our editor, when we were getting the paperwork, I happened to be in London researching another book and I went to Liberty. And
Mhm.
you can still go to Liberty and see all the scarves, and it's an amazing building.
Mhm.
It's not the original, but it's this big Tudor style place, and it's pretty neat. And you can see all the display windows which feature in the book. And yes, you were saying about your heroine?
Oh, so when we decided we wanted to do a Liberty of London feature, and I was trying to figure out, well, what kind of heroine should I have? And there's a scarf that we wanted to have made particular because she has this message kind of stitched onto it for the man that she falls in love with. And I thought, well, the best way to do that is to have her design the scarf. So my heroine is one of the painters up in the art department because at the time they didn't allow women to design the scarves. That didn't actually come around until the 1950s or 60s. At the time, they would get outside artists to draw the design, and then Liberty of London would paint it and put it together and stuff. So nobody in-house was actually creating these scarves. But my heroine, as you said, is a little bit of ahead of her time, and she wanted to be the first female. So she takes ideas from the Art Nouveau movement, which was going on at the time, and she started trying to bring in a little bit of the Art Deco that hadn't quite taken hold yet and putting them into the scarves. And then, Rachel, like you said, this was not the original building that you currently see in London. It was actually built in 1924 to help represent the history and tradition of Britain. And what is more British than like the Tudor, half timber
Half timber.
looking structures that they have? And well, how am I going to put that into the story? I know I'll make my hero the architect who helps build the design for it. So I was able to incorporate the history of the scarf and the building into my story along with a love story.
Yeah, and I
So,
love that that building from 1924 is still there because we're living in an era where everybody does their shopping online. And I got this one online because I couldn't go to London, sorry. But
Janelle's mom
and
went to London too.
she did, and she got us pictures.
Yes.
that's amazing. But and I've been to Dublin since the book, or since right before the book came out, but not quite London. But I just think it's beautiful that the building is still there and it's still, retail shopping almost feels nostalgic anymore. And I love it that I love that. I love that it's still there.
Yeah. And I love being able to design a scarf that meant something to my characters and that eventually went on to mean something for your characters as well.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when it features in my story, my book, it's not my book, it's all
My
of our
portion
books.
of the book.
When it features in my portion of the book, it's actually starts as an act of rebellion because my heroine Clara has a friend who's a nurse who tucks a scarf beneath her they have a very rigid matronly overseer in the hospital where they work as nurses. And she wanted to just always have a bit of color. And that's something Clara is inspired by. And so it was fun to play with how do I introduce the scarf, knowing that the scarf is not, we actually had to figure out how the scarf would get where.
Yes.
Because it moves throughout Europe. And that was kind of fun with Aimie going, okay, where your hero needs to be here, so I can pass off the scarf, and then the scarf needs to get back here. That's the kind of stuff I really enjoy about the collaborative
Oh,
part
for
of
sure.
novels is when you're writing on your own. It's just you having to figure out how people are getting around.
Yeah.
Or like, where did you go? Weren't you
Right.
in this scene?
Yeah, we
Runaway
can't, you
character.
can't, yeah, this is a type of project you can't write as an island. Whereas, there were a lot of things that had to fit together for Castle Keepers, but they were, mine was 1870s, Janelle's was World War One, Rachel was World War Two.
Yeah.
And, we had to make sure that we had certain ducks in a row, but the stories, there were things that wove it together, but these really are interleaving stories.
Mhm.
And splicing them together was a bit of a trick. But so Rachel, so just to, we don't want to spoil anything, but Janelle's character designs the scarf, and my main character receives a version of the scarf as a gift from a potential suitor. And it means a lot because they're both, going into the fray and they're both scared. And he gives her the scarf and a copy of Hope is a Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson, which is the saying that is etched into the scarf.
Which was Amy's idea.
And that which readers are loving, because anytime I get a message about Liberty Scarf, it's kind of refreshing people's memory about that quote. So people are loving the quote. So well done, Aimie.
Oh yeah. Well, and I thought it was great because the love interest is French and my character is French Canadian. And and I love being able to talk about the Hello Girls because their involvement in World War One was, really underplayed. And they just in 1979, the year I was born, were able to receive veterans benefits, et cetera. They were basically drummed out of the army, even though they were subject to court martial, et cetera, and so forth during the war, but they weren't able to go to VA hospitals. They didn't get their pensions, nothing.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, so there was a young scrappy lawyer that took up the case in 1979, and I got to meet him by random run of happenstance when I was researching Girls on the Line. So, but I really wanted to talk about the French Canadians because my original protagonist in Girls on the Line was from an upper crust family in Philadelphia that were socially mobile family. And I love the idea of, because she has a best friend who's French Canadian, and she is the recipient of a lot of prejudice and just exposing that. And she's from a very modest background in Maine, in Lewiston, and and she she's been dating an American who is trying to basically scrub the Canadian right out of her. And and she meets this wonderful Frenchman who loves her for the way she is, and that made me happy
And
to
Aimie
write about
speaks
that.
French and studied in
Yes,
Quebec.
yes,
She's
and
legit.
France, yeah. I
Yeah.
have a master's in French, so I got
Isn't
to
that
nerd out a
cool,
bit.
everybody? You can see a
Yeah.
bit of that influence in Mademoiselle Eiffel, which came out this year. And actually, it was
Yeah.
fun the other night because Notre Dame, because I'm the church architecture girl, so Notre Dame reopened, and then there was a tweet from the Eiffel Tower to Notre Dame saying, "We're looking out for you," and I'm like,
Yeah,
Aimie,
they were shining their light at Notre
like
Dame, and I'm
our,
like,
it's like
yeah.
our structures are friends.
Yes. I love kind of the idea of anthropomorphizing these, amazing buildings.
Yeah,
And it's like,
they're just
yeah,
talking to each other.
exactly. And no, the Eiffel Tower being the young scrappy thing, Notre Dame having seen like, centuries of history, and them still being friends despite it all.
And
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 there's
just
a
how
children's book there.
listening to Parisians, this is so not about Liberty Scarf, but just listen to
Yeah.
Parisians talk about how each structure is important for different things. Like
Oh,
Notre
for
Dame is
sure.
almost the soul of Paris because it's witnessed so much and it's a very religious city. Where Eiffel Tower is more of like what Janelle did with it brought in a modern contemporary look to a city
Yes.
that was traditionally very old.
And it's
So go buy
scientifically
that book
very
too, everybody.
important. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Eiffel Tower was, I mean, it's a bit outdated now, but I mean, it's still a radio tower. And Gustave Eiffel used it as his private laboratory for decades after it was built. And, they realized it was too important, not just as a tourist attraction, but it was too important to take down. And he used it when he was trying to help design to design new aviation in World War One. Gustave Eiffel and his daughter Claire from Mademoiselle
From
Eiffel,
the book that you all need to buy.
yeah, but she was running hospitals in World War One. I remember writing my agent, I'm like, do I need to like get into their involvement in World War One? She's like, no, that's another book. Don't
The
focus on the
sequel.
tower.
Yeah.
The
But
sequel.
yeah, she got like a commemoration from the president of France for her work running hospitals in Switzerland.
And that's the problem with writing a book where you have one portion is that I think all of us can say, at least I did, like 80,000 times more research than what ended up in the final product because
Always.
I was so fascinated by everything that I was researching, including that area of the world. Like I just learned all the customs and traditions and the dress and everything about Strasbourg and the history.
Oh,
Um,
Strasbourg.
it was just gorgeous, and I loved reading about the Alsatian region and everything that went on during the war there and how it was kind of German, kind of French, kind of in the middle. Um, and I went on so many massive rabbit holes in research just about every single part of it. And then you realize you only have a certain amount of pages to tell all
Yeah,
these
and
stories.
not that many, really. I mean, it's like what we each get about 35,000 words.
And
That's not very much. I mean, it's like I'm
it
just hitting my
wasn't. At one
stride.
point, it was like over 50,000. I was like, you have to cut this.
Yeah, the red pen
And
or purple. I
it
use
was
purple.
hard because it's so fascinating. That's why I love writing historical fiction because I am really very much just a researcher at heart. It's my favorite part of the whole thing.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
and I bet Janelle, you too. I bet you could have put in so much more about Liberty of London and scarves and architecture
Yeah.
and just everything.
Yeah, but at some point you have to tell the story, right?
I know.
Like, what are these people doing? Like the whole textile production and stuff is fascinating. Like I have a whole research book on it, and I got to pour through their history and the different fabrics that they've made. And I thought, oh, this is fascinating. Oh, but it doesn't actually relate to the story, so we don't need
No,
it
that's
in there.
You
But I
needed to
thought
write
it,
another book.
I know,
yeah, or
right?
social media fodder, that sort of thing. And I was thinking a lot about this today. Like our primary focus is to entertain and, educating along with that. But people don't want to leave the book. I mean, I think the worst possible thing is that they leave the book feeling like, yeah, they, say it's like saying that, feeling like they could make their own scarf in the Liberty style because they've learned all the processes, or even worse, feeling like they read a history book about Liberty of London instead of reading a novel. And
Right.
so it really is a tough balance to strike sometimes, because
It
I
is.
don't know a single historical fiction author worth their salt that isn't a research nerd,
Yeah.
first and
Yeah.
foremost.
But you
Yeah.
just want to have just enough to make it interesting, knowledgeable, magical, and then move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to weave it in
You're
deftly.
I always think of it as just like you're a gateway so that people want to read more.
Hmm.
And that's something I find really awesome. But as a writer too, it makes me really passionate about things that I want to read more about as well. Um, it's and World War One is a vast mine of so many elements, just like World War Two. And I think that's why we're seeing more people who are writing more locations that we haven't seen so much of before, or certain stories that we haven't seen so much
Yeah,
Well, one
way to
thing
before.
I
do,
really
Randy.
liked about this story was that we had different locations.
Yeah.
I was in London, and y'all were over on the
That
continent,
was
France
Brussels for
and
me-ish.
Brussels.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we all end up in Strasbourg.
Yeah, and I
And
started off in Maine and then moved to Mozaken, which was what, basically is ground zero for the last days of the war. So,
And it was
yeah.
fascinating because I love Brussels. I think it's a city I always want to write it, and I haven't had a chance to. Um, Partly because Charlotte Bronte spent so much of her life there and wrote Viet there. It's like one of my favorite cities. And Belgium was one of the places where a lot, like the last ever cavalry charge happened in Belgium in the last days of the war. There was just so much I could put in. And Florence Nightingale was like, it's amazing how many things are linked to that place. And I just don't see it being talked about. And I loved that in Europe, and we did this in the Castle Keepers as well. Even old crumbling castles and palaces, everything got turned into hospitals. I
Mhm.
mean, they made use of these houses. Like places like Downton Abbey would
Yeah.
sometimes just turn into, okay, there's a whole wing that's a hospital now. Um, Downton Abbey being fictional, but that's a real thing that happened.
The
Yeah,
real castle was a convalescent
Yeah.
home. So
yeah. So I think that, of course, Downton Abbey is based in, it's a fictional world, but they definitely drew from real history. It's an amalgamation of a lot of stories, Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I just think the other thing that I really like about that time, and I didn't get to explore it too much, because of, she's a nurse, she's often in uniform, was the fashion of that time. I do really like how women's clothing was changing. And I do like that women had so much agency to go out, and part of seeing a world from, where Clara is from, this small town, would be to be a nurse and go to the front and go and work in the city as a nurse. Women didn't have a lot of opportunities afforded them to have it, but we see Hello Girls. We see women who
Yeah.
start working in munitions factories. In Toronto, a bunch of women in the First World War started learning how to fire guns. Um, and it's just, I just find it so interesting. I loved writing. I mean,
It,
obviously, it gets stressful and you're on deadline and you have to cut 30,000 words, but I really loved the research for this story. And happily, I was able to finally name a hero after my nephew Roman, because Roman in French, a roman is a novel or a book, and there's a huge storytelling theme. But my little nephew is so adorable, and I know when he gets just a little bit older, he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, my name's in a book," and I think he'll just, that's awesome.
Plus you got to write a musician.
I did. And that was me always trying to find some way to put music in books. I think I've said this on Warwick's events before. My parents spent a lot of money on my musical education growing up, like so many years of classical voice training and piano. And so I didn't go into that world, but I try to write it. And learning that there were musicians, that the premier musicians that would follow the troops as a sense of morale and just pitch a tent and play this classical music. It was really fascinating to me. It's like the guy equivalent of the women who would go around the USO, like we hear about performances. I thought that was a really neat part of it. Um, and I also got to write a little bit about visual art, which is something I don't usually pursue in my books, but Clara is a huge fan of Bruegel's paintings, and he's such a huge part of capturing the essence of that region of Europe. It was just I mean, the research was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was. We covered
Well,
a
I
lot
mean,
of bases.
yeah, and see, Rachel does music, and what does Aimie do? Food. My character went to a cave
Oh,
à champagne in
that
the middle of the
like
war.
freaking, it's amazing. I forget to make my characters eat. It's something editors say, like, should they eat something at some point? Whereas Aimie has this incredible ability to describe food, and you're going to see it a lot in the contemporary novels that
Oh
she's
gosh,
writing now.
yeah. Yeah,
And
I
if you
like
haven't
no holds
read
barred. No
Memories
holds
of
barred with
Lavender and
the
Sage, already has it. Oh, Bakery in
yes.
Paris. Bakery in Paris is like food, food, food.
Food,
Yeah.
food, food. But you know what's funny is that
During a
I
siege.
actually had to cut a food scene out of Mademoiselle Eiffel because my editor Tessa said, Aimie, this is not a bakery in Paris. Calm down. And I still had somebody said the food descriptions that were left in were distracting. And it's like, okay, guys, blood sugar issues, I don't know, but I'm gonna describe food. And because I'm like perpetually
Because
hungry
you're
and
a
you can all
chef.
deal with it.
And actually, we go to Aimie. Like, I love going to Janelle and Aimie for baking and cooking questions because they're really good at stuff like that. And I loved there was what were you promoting, Janelle, or what was it where you were that cake was not happening?
Oh,
My
that
bunt
cake. I
pan.
felt so I gave you all the advice I had to give about how to get the
I just
cake,
think
but
the world was against you that day, and you were
That
so
cake.
bravely sharing it
some of
online.
those
And
really intricate pans, I had the same thing happen. I made a lemon cake in a really gluten-free lemon cake in a really fancy bundt pan my best friend had given me. And man, it just there was no it was not having it. And
Mm-mm.
some cake recipes just don't work with those fancy pans, I'm telling you.
I know, because I tried it in my other one that had a much like a rounded top,
Hmm.
and it came right out. I was like, I think it was the pan. So, anyways, I
Yeah.
used Black Friday and just bought a whole new pan that I'm
oh,
really
good.
excited to test
I
out.
am
And we'll
coveting,
see.
like I need to go and buy some all new Nordic ware like baking sheets and stuff like that. Like I'm trying to get rid of everything with non-stick coating and just go
Mm.
for like plain stainless steel or aluminum. But I can't
They have
afford
these
Hestian.
nutcracker molds, like
Oh,
mini loaf pans that I really, really want.
oh,
So,
those are pretty. I have a train pan I bought for my son's like second
Oh,
birthday.
that's so
And it's like you
fun.
cannot use anything but the recipe they tell you to use, or it will just like because it's so intricate, it just won't
mm.
work.
And
Yes,
it
and
was
now
fun
we're
to
off on
do.
a tangent about
No, but
baking,
it
man.
was
So good luck.
I
Good
one of
luck
the
getting me
things
to shut up about that topic. I
one
made
of
a
the things
pecan pie today.
oh, did you?
Yes,
You're
we're
so
having like a really
you're a
nice dinner going
baker.
on upstairs
Oh.
after this. Ham, green beans, and like yeah, roasted potatoes and pecan
And
pie.
pie.
It's because I burned the ever living heck out of my hand, and so
Oh,
we didn't get
yes.
to do a lot of our
Over
desserts.
Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes, over Thanksgiving, it was the day before Thanksgiving. I grabbed it was my breakfast omelet pan, and it was over a hot burner. I didn't realize I hadn't turned it on. It's been superheating. So yeah, my hand was all mangled.
It had a
And
mitt.
yes, I had a mitt for like 3 days and then band-aids, and it's in the gross phase. You guys probably can't see it, but so yeah, we're like making up all the ingredients I had in the house for dessert. We're making them slowly between now and Christmas. So
I love that.
Speaking of Christmas and not
You should
Amy's
buy
gross
the
hand,
Liberty scarf and give it
Liberty
yes,
to
Star.
everyone you know.
yes,
Because it
Well, I
does
like
like
make
that
a good
we
Christmas
got
present.
a chance to kind of work around Christmas. I know, Rachel, you said it's not a Christmas story, but I'm like, no, it is a Christmas story.
It has
Yeah,
amazingly Christmas. I mean, it can be an all year story,
it
but
can.
it does have a really meaningful scene set at Christmas that evokes the Christmas market life in Europe that everyone loves.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, we're just going to go straight out and tell you that everyone gets a happily ever after. So it's not where you're going to be in, one of the, one of the
and then they all die. No, we don't
was
do
just
that. It's
like
not Russian literature.
I didn't like the last part because that author was too romantic. That author being me, but that's kind of what I do. I like being too romantic. So
Yes, absolutely. Me
there's
too.
still some history in there, but it's romantic and it's nice when there's a lot of historical fiction and there's a lot of uh, books that are out there that want to talk about historical periods that are perhaps a little darker. This one, you learn a lot about very interesting people doing interesting things in their time period, women who have completely different roles that allow them to step out of what society expected of them at the time. We all have three really wonderful guys hanging around because we all like writing
Oh,
interesting men.
Maxime. Yeah.
It was just so much fun to write that I'm a little nostalgic for it. I don't know about you guys, but when you're writing a book that's really hard to write and you're editing it and it's just like not going and you're like, oh, I miss the good old days when I was writing Liberty Scarf. But then during Liberty Scarf, when it was tough, I was missing the good old days of the one before that. So,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
I
Well,
do
and
think,
so, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say I would like us to try another one sometime. We haven't talked about another one, but I think it would be fun to do again when our
Yeah, why
schedules.
not? If we have the
Um,
right idea.
Yeah, the right
Yes,
idea.
the right
Yeah, you
idea.
guys can make your requests in the chat right now. Like,
Oh,
say,
that would be interesting.
That would be
I love
fun.
what to write.
I've always thought it would be
But-
fun to do something Hollywoody with you guys.
Oh, that would be fun.
Golden Age.
I have
Girls
an
trip to
entire
LA,
shelf
folks.
of Hollywood.
But you know what? I think everybody should get copies of Liberty Scarf to give and like pair it in a nice gift basket with a pretty scarf and some chocolate or
Yes.
something.
Mm,
And then throw
Or
in some of
tea.
our other books. Yeah.
cheese.
Also, we
Nice.
got to keep our title. It was like Liberty Scarf, and they're like, yeah, it's
yeah.
Liberty
Isn't
Scarf.
it,
I
guys,
never, I never get to keep my titles.
isn't it great? I like seriously, it was Liberty Scarf and then Mademoiselle Eiffel. No debate. No debate.
Yeah.
Like Memory of Lavender and Sage and the Wandering Seasons, like months of debate. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But
Another behind the scenes in publishing, and the title that an author puts forward doesn't necessarily always. I mean, Janelle knew this from the Tiara book.
oh yes, the Winged Tiara.
Tiara.
Yes, it was supposed to be the
That
last
had
Valkyrie.
some moments. That had some moments while it was in discussion, but that's another really great book that is in the 20s. So you see Janelle kind of set up that fashion and deco world that she loves, and then she gets
do.
to go full on.
I do.
in-
So if we write Hollywood, hello, it'll be right in my wheelhouse again.
Yeah, we should do Hollywood.
Why not? Why not? Sounds
We
fun.
all
We can
love
take a
old
girls'
movies.
trip to LA.
And then go see Julie.
Yeah, and then we can go see Julie.
I'm thinking that's a great segue. I'm gonna like write a book and then come down to San Diego. Oh, I love. Okay, I've got so many questions. So if anybody's got any questions, please pop them into the
Yeah.
chat because.
And if you
or into
are
the-
on the YouTube after, because I know how this works, I've done a million of these. If you're on YouTube after, we will check and see if there's any comments there as well.
Yep.
If you're not able to watch it in real life.
Well, and also I think you all are really good about responding back to your fans if they message you on your social media too. So if
Yeah,
somebody's
come
got a
find us on
question-
social.
Very hard to.
Just
Pop.
don't find my Twitter today. It is a hellhole today. I have been
Poor Rachel.
unintentionally the recipient of very unintentional cyberbullying and threats today from a tweet that was a very
The most
harmless tweet.
Innocent, innocuous tweet.
That just said, I'm a literary agent in my day job, and it just said literary agents, we Google authors when we're considering them just to see where
Sure.
they are. It was harmless. Oh, it did not go over well.
Seriously?
So yeah.
Yeah, they
there's-
thought, they probably assume that you're, gate checking for their political views, this, that, and the other thing. And it's
Yeah, it
like,
was
well, I need to find
it
out
was
if
a
you're a
harmless
jerk.
tweet that got into the dark side of the web that I was not, and somehow it leaked to all these accounts that
Oh,
are full
Lord.
of very angry,
Trolls.
horrible, trolly people.
Right.
Who then
Well,
actually
I'm sorry. You
it's
have
awful,
to.
but
you have
we'll
to
go back to talking about Liberty Scarf.
Well, but you also have to. I mean, going back to that just for a second, it's like you need to know, is this a real person that's querying you?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just some simple things. that
And
it's just like-
sometimes I just want to see if they have pets because I like to look at animal pictures. It was pretty harmless. But
Right.
yes, we're all this to say we're really active on social media and we're very open. It's just my Twitter
Yeah,
today
Yeah,
has been a bit
absolutely.
of a
To non-troll
Oh.
commentary.
Yes, I need to figure out how to get them out of there. Okay, so I've got a ton of questions, so we'll probably have a few minutes here. So my question might be a little controversial. Speaking of controversy
Ooh,
with all of you ladies, are you each brutally honest with each other if there's something you don't like
yeah.
about what somebody's writing?
And that's
Yeah.
why I
Probably the
need
worst.
them. Like I actually need Janelle and Aimie to kick me into gear because I need to know what's wrong or what's not working. I actually it's that's part of why this is such a lucky collaboration,
Right.
because I don't need people telling me my work is beautiful. I need to know where the issues are.
So was it after the first, so were you that way with the first book, or have you grown to be a little bit more unforgiving with each other at this point?
No, Janelle is always really blunt, and I appreciate that about her.
I love
But it's
it.
only
Only
because
to my friends, though.
she cares
Yes.
about the story, and
Right.
I think that it's a really good thing. The one thing I would say with these collaborations is usually before I was very nervous to show anyone but my editor my writing before it turned into a book. I have trouble being with writer groups and communities. I'm very self-conscious, but you can't really be that way when you have two people who need to see what you're doing so they can do their
Yeah,
parts. So
because
I
our
think we
names are
try
on the
to
book
be,
too. Yeah.
yeah, we try to be honest, but for the story and
Tactful.
for wanting to help. Yeah.
Aimie, they really good point, Aimie. All your names are on that book.
Yeah.
So it has
So
to be
none of
something
us
that
could
you
go
all are
rogue.
proud of.
The vampires could not attack. Although, Janelle, I think you might have liked this book if it had vampires.
Yeah, why not?
Spice things up.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
think
talk-
the thing that makes it work is that we are very honest and open with each other, and we're not only able to give critique but accept it with a thick
Yeah.
skin, because we all want to get better at our craft.
Right.
But we don't have an ego between the three of us. We
I
really
don't.
don't.
I mean,
No,
it's
it's
true.
okay.
There's
Yeah.
not really a lot of ego
There's no
happening here.
divas. And I know
Right.
a lot of
No.
people say that, but it's honestly the truth. Nobody's
I
a
love it.
diva.
So
Yeah,
a
like this
couple
has
of
been
like,
very drama free, I think,
I
in
love
general.
it.
Yeah.
And
So a
I've
couple
heard
like,
horror stories.
oh yeah, no, there are definitely horror stories of the collaborations. They don't work as smoothly. So do you all? Well, I got a couple questions here. So do you all go off and write for X amount, and then how often do you show each other your work? Is there
Not
is there
always.
word
And
count that you?
Janelle's always done first.
Always.
I
Is
finished my portion like an
always
entire
first.
year
It's
before
true.
the other two started. And I'm like, what's wrong? Why aren't y'all doing what I'm doing?
Janelle is a diligent student,
Jan-
and Rachel's got like 37 day jobs going, and
Yeah.
I'm always the last one because I always have so many books I have to write and so many zillion things going
Okay,
on.
but that's interesting though that you okay, so Janelle, you're finished, but you're really
Janelle
not
is
finished.
such a methodical. I mean, she knows what she's doing. She's a great
Right.
outliner.
But the story has to like interlock with itself.
So
yeah,
we,
I think
we
Janelle's
did so
strategy.
much.
I think Janelle's strategy. She finishes first, and we got to work around her.
And it works though, because then Janelle can say, I need this to happen, this to happen. But we also ran drafts of that outline by our editor. Like we did
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of
Pre-gaming.
Okay.
And it wasn't as essential that all of our voices blend because they're three different experiences.
Mhm.
You know, you have some, even Kate Quinn and Janie Chang did this with Phoenix Crown, where it's alternating viewpoints. So you can get a bit of Kate's voice, a bit of Janie's voice. We weren't ever trying to make it so seamless. I think
Got
the
it.
three W's, Lauren Lauren
White.
Willig and Beatrice Williams. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they do the same thing. Whereas Jen, our friends, Jen Thorne and Lee Kelly. Sorry, I'm in a different email group with them, and it's always, but they, with their books, with two different, they try really hard to mesh their voices together.
There's some
One big
collaborations
Google
that they
Doc.
do try and that they
Yeah.
write the book as if it's a one, where
But
this
yeah,
doesn't
and
sound like it's that case.
Yeah, and I
You're
know
getting
that.
your Aimie.
I'm sorry. What?
I was just gonna say you're getting your Rachel, you're getting
Yeah.
your Janelle, you're getting your Aimie. If you are
Yeah.
used to our styles and the hallmarks of our respective books, this is a reflection of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there are authors like I think that Kim was telling us that the wonderful collaboration between Christina McMorris and Ara Lahan and
Oh, and Susan Meissner.
Yes, and they
Yeah.
worked like together in a Google document, but we didn't do that. Like
Okay.
we kept
No.
it separate. I think that most of I mean kind of prefer to get a draft or, once we're outlined and we know what we're doing, it's kind of nice to get a draft under our belt before we open the door. Just so, and then, I mean, you edit it away, hack and slash, but it's nice to have something to work with before you open the door.
And
Okay,
we
but
should
here's
talk about, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Tell us what you
Just
want to talk about.
Amy's ending. One of the things you should know is that final chapter was a lot about giving Aimie the information she needed so she could bring the whole thing home.
Yeah.
So that final scene
Yeah.
That's
fell
all
to
Aimie.
Aimie.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was decided because I got to write the first part of Castle Keepers that I had to tie up Liberty Scarf. So I went in knowing that I had to write a chapter
You had
or
to tie
two
the
to tie this
scarf.
whole thing together. And it's so scary.
So for
You
those that
did.
haven't for those that haven't read the book that are interested in doing so, is each chapter take us to a different, or how did
No,
you
it's
meld
different
them?
portions. There's 3
Yeah,
parts.
there's like 6 parts.
Yeah, and then
So we
at the
spend
end,
we
it all
spend a lot
comes
of time
together.
with Amy's section,
Yeah.
and then we go to
Yeah.
So we
Yeah, it's
spend a
Janelle,
good
Aimie,
chunk of
Rachel.
time.
It's Janelle, Aimie, Rachel, Janelle, Rachel, Aimie. I think.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think.
Okay,
It
so
is.
we
It'll
spend
be
a good
obvious
so we
when you
do
read
spend a
it.
good chunk of time with each.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you get to know them. And
Okay.
another thing we really wanted to do with this book was letters, and I actually love writing letters
Mm.
in. I'd
Yeah,
love to
very
do
epistolary.
epistolary. I'd love to do a whole novel told that way sometime. But it was really fun to play with that. Also, when you have a word count that can't be too big, letters allow you to do montages
Right.
and move
Yep.
the action along.
Yes.
So it can get Roman to where he needs to be. It's like, okay, days have passed.
Okay, so that makes sense then, because because my other question was,
Yeah.
how did you, to your point, Aimie, edit this? Is like, if you all are writing this and then you're going to try and interweave, but if we're spending good chunks of time with
Oh yeah,
each-
it was enough separate that we could do it.
Yeah.
We could do a lot individually. But when I say we talk every day, we do talk every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
I
love
have
it.
to send my daily pictures of Gigi Cat, or Rachel just won't have a good day.
I need pictures of Amy's cat.
Yes,
So
he's a
fun.
good cat. He's sleeping like the cats are both asleep like
And
5
if I
feet
don't
from
get
her.
one, I beg.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gigi,
But
where's Gigi?
Where's
I do
Gigi?
love the collaborations, because to your point, to all I think you talked about this, it's like it's such a solitary endeavor when you become an author, and to have a collaboration with somebody and women that you trust. I think that's a really important, just makes you feel good to be with somebody that you're.
And it's
that you're
good for the
working with.
reader too,
Oh, yeah.
because you get 3 different women's experiences here, and you're doubtless going to be attached more to one than others. I mean, if you connect with one heroine, you're going to be excited for that story. And I think that's wonderful. You get 3 completely different settings and perspectives here that all tie up.
Right.
Yeah, well, also in the reviews, they'll say, "Oh, I've read all of Aimie books, but Janelle and Rachel were new to me, and I'm glad I
so
got
then
introduced to them."
it's very interesting to grow a readership.
Mhm.
It's the lifting up.
You
Yeah.
you discovered our evil plot is to expand our readership.
It's so it's really great though, because I mean there's a lot, there's so many distractions today, and there just needs to be, I love when we can have that thing that keeps it together, and it's like, oh, now I can go do this, and I can recognize this person, or there's just somebody new. I think that's fantastic for
And if
all
you like
readers.
audiobooks, we have 3 wonderful narrators for the audio. So you're going to get 3 very different voices that respectively highlight the heroines, which I think is really awesome.
So we know that we don't have the new idea for the next collaboration. So
No.
again, everyone, if you have ideas out there, send them along to the ladies. So I'm going to go around the room. We're going to wrap up here a little bit. I'm going to go around the room and talk about what your next individual product or project is that you're working on. So Rachel, let's start with you.
Oh Lord. Well, eventually Operation Scarlet is coming out. It just needed so much more time and a complete rewrite. And sometimes that happens. And I have, it's not great to not have a full novel out this year, but it just needed some time. So that will eventually come out. And I'm still working on a biography of Sir Christopher Wren, the architect in London. So that will be coming out in the next year or so. And then I just got back from Vienna because I was on a research trip for the book that's going to happen after Operation Scarlet. And it's also really interesting. You always want to be working on the book just one before the one that you're in 8 years of edits with. But I also have a completely different non-writing life, which is being the person who is behind other people getting contracts.
And she's
And
amazing at it, by the
I
way.
just have a lot of authors who have had their books are coming out in the next years because we've been able to find them wonderful publishing homes. So that's a huge
Fantastic.
part of my life too, and I really like that part of it.
Yeah. Like I said, always lifting other people up. I love it. That is wonderful for all of you. Okay, Aimie, what are you working on next?
Well, my next book comes out April 1st. It's called The Wandering Season, and you're going to get an ARC in your mailbox soon. And it's a contemporary, and it's about a specialty food broker who gets a nasty surprise when she gets a DNA kit for Christmas. Here in Estes Park, I get to set a chapter or two in Estes Park, and she ends up going traveling all over Europe to visit the places where her ancestors lived, kind of as a guilt trip from her family, in the middle of January in Northern Europe. And she so she has a wonderful, foodie adventures, but in each of these places she sees visions of her foremothers at the point where they decided to go to America, because that was the culminating decision that led to her existence. And so it's a journey of self-discovery and my love letter to travel and food, and her discovering her self-worth, and realizing how much that had been damaged over the years. And so it was a joy to write, and I'm excited to share that with you. And we're working on signing a new contract for 2 new contemporary books with Harper Muse, the next of which in 2026 is tentatively entitled Sabrina Sorensen Seeks the Stars. And it has to do with a Michelin guide inspector. And there's going to be some magical realism and lots of great food.
Oh,
And so, and then I don't know what's happening after that book, but working on another historical pitch as well. I'm kind of billing this Irish Outlander. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that and hoping that it finds a home in 2025. So
I'm not a writer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm always intrigued and impressed by the ideas that just flow out of all of you and can put 100,000 words together and make these wonderful books for all of us to read. It's amazing.
It's fun. Amazing. And then just one little thing like sparks an idea. Like I had the idea about this woman, kind of time traveling. She's on the cusp of a professional achievement, and got it kind of like, well, was it worth all the sacrifice to get to this point? And I was trying to figure out what food-based career could she have. And our friend Jenny Walsh said, make her a Michelin guide inspector. I'm like, holy cow, because that so adds in so much because of the anonymity and how competitive it is. And, the amount of work you have to do to get to that point, to get a job where you'll earn roughly the same salary as a public school teacher.
Right.
And it added a whole different layer to the book.
I love it. Love it. And love, like I said, the collaboration and everybody trying to help each other out. Janelle, what are you working on next?
Well, at the moment, I don't have any books coming out anytime soon. We're hoping that will change.
That's going to change.
And she can't really talk about the books,
and I can't really talk about
what the books are.
Oh, behind the scenes, but
really
we have things to look forward to. I'm hoping.
I hope so. I hope that they will find a home soon. They're a little different from what I've written. They're historical. They've got a little bit of magic realism, maybe a little touch of horror.
Ooh.
Yeah,
to
it's really cool.
But
Janelle can write anything. She really can.
Very, very romantic. So I'm hoping that they find homes very soon. And Rachel is helping me on my
on your journey.
Were they fun to write?
Yes. They've been they're fun, but they're also very challenging because they have elements that I've never tackled before.
Okay.
So it can be challenging. There are some rough days. Like, why did I even take this on? Just let me go back to
a crash course in different genres almost.
But I think that so kind of what keeps it interesting though for you too. Because it does make you expand, because what do they say? It's like if you're doing it and you feel confident, it's like you're not working hard. It's like you got to set that goalpost.
That's absolutely true. In each book, I try to challenge myself, and boy, did I ever writing these
Yeah.
new ones. And I hope that someone will take a chance on them
I think you
and
will. I
make
think
them
you
better.
will.
So
I think
They
so.
are fabulous. I can say this. Like,
All right. Well, we can't wait. We'll send it up to the into the ether and make sure something happens there.
Yeah.
we're gonna
Ladies,
manifest it.
yeah, we'll
We're
Yes,
gonna
manifest it.
manifest it.
Put that yeah, that vision board out there. Ladies, always so great to have you.
Thank you so much.
I just adore doing the virtual events, and I love that y'all come on with us. So with that, everybody go order the Liberty Scarf or any other books that these wonderful ladies have written, because they between them they've
Books
written
make great
lots.
gifts.
Yes,
They
they
do.
do. 'Tis the season.
Yeah.
And I love your
Gift
idea,
basket.
Aimie.
Themed gift
A
baskets.
Scarf, the book, and some
Yeah.
chocolate. Chef's
Mhm.
kiss. Love it.
Boom.
All
Done.
right. Okay, everyone.
All right.
See you
Thanks so
later.
much.
Thanks for
Bye.
coming
Thank
in.
you.
Joining.
Bye.
Bye.